Welcome to our first round of public engagement for the MDOT US-131 PEL study. We appreciate your time and would like to know who you are and your interests in this study through a follow-up survey. In this presentation, we plan to share what a PEL study is, where and why we are doing this study, what we're planning to study, who is involved in this study, and when we are planning to complete the different phases of this study. The Michigan Department of Transportation, also known as MDOT, our State Department of Transportation, has initiated a planning and environmental linkages, also known as a PEL study, for the US-131 freeway between M11, also known as 28th Street in Wyoming, and the S-curve around Market Avenue in downtown Grand Rapids. A PEL study identifies solutions to improve conditions, safety, and operations by analyzing data and input provided by the public and stakeholders. A PEL study represents a collaborative and integrated approach to transportation decision-making that aims to balance local and community goals with regional, state, and national needs. It also provides MDOT an opportunity to develop improvement options at a planning level before identifying future funding for any potential projects that result from this process. The US-131 freeway is part of a longer, statewide corridor of highest significance, as identified in the state of Michigan's 2040 Long-Range Transportation Plan. One of the reasons this freeway has been identified as a corridor of highest significance is because this freeway serves local transportation and access needs, as well as longer-distance regional and interstate travel that support the mobility of the traveling public, freight distribution, and other essential services. As depicted by the purple line in the middle of this map, the study corridor includes the US-131 freeway between M11, also known as 28th Street, and the S-curve. The PEL study will identify feasible alternative solutions or alternatives for this study corridor and its interchange infrastructure. We will also look at a broader area to consider the land use impacts of alternatives, regional connectivity, and adjacent community needs. The broader area includes portions of the cities of Grand Rapids and Wyoming. The broader study area is shaded on this map. Now that we have identified the corridor, area, and purpose for this study, we will walk through the study phases. This PEL study features 3 phases, and each phase includes opportunities for you to provide input. We are currently in Phase 1. During this phase, we are investigating current corridor conditions. The conditions under investigation include growth and development patterns, traffic safety, and traffic operations. The results of this initial investigation will help determine what the project's purpose and needs are, more formally known as the Purpose and Needs Statement in the PEL process. We are also developing draft evaluation criteria that will be used to score the feasible alternatives. During Phase 2, corridor alternatives and improvements will be developed and reviewed for performance against select criteria, such as safety, mobility, and how well they support opportunities to walk, bike, and use transit. Public input will also be sought on the alternatives and initial scoring. During the third phase, we will select and refine the preferred alternative or alternatives and develop more detailed plans and establish a potential timeline for implementation. Members of the public will be invited to provide input on the preferred alternative or alternatives and the future implementation plan. After the PEL process is complete, additional future steps will involve designing and constructing the preferred alternative. The timeline for future phases will be based on MDOT's funding availability and priorities. A local advisory committee, also known as the LAC, was established by MDOT for this study, with committee members representing regional governments and businesses. The LAC includes committee members from the City of Grand Rapids, the City of Wyoming, the Kent County Road Commission, the Kent County Administration, the Grand Valley Metro Council, also known as the GVMC, the Rapid, Downtown Grand Rapids Incorporated, also known as the DGRI, the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, and the Right Place. The local advisory committee has and will meet on a recurring basis to help identify local needs and communicate project progress and outcomes to decision makers. Now, we will walk through our draft project purpose and needs statement and request your feedback. The project purpose frames why we are doing this study. As a result of our efforts, we hope to improve traffic and safety conditions, maintain essential local and regional mobility, relieve congestion and improve travel time reliability for freight, passenger, and emergency transportation, locally and regionally, address pavement and bridge infrastructure conditions, maximize multimodal access, and improve access to and across the freeway for transit. Identify partnership opportunities to enhance all modes of travel along corridors adjacent to the freeway. Identify priorities based on reasonably anticipated future revenues. Minimize travel disruptions and delays during construction phases of future improvement projects within the PEL segment, and assess opportunities for future infrastructure maintenance efficiencies. The project needs define opportunities for improvement that were identified during our initial visioning session. Project needs include accommodate growing regional traffic volumes and metro area development, address safety, operational, and congestion issues, rehabilitate and reconstruct aging infrastructure, review interchange operational issues resulting from changing travel and adjacent land use patterns, mitigate freight transportation bottlenecks and access limitations, address mobility challenges for non-motorized connections across the freeways, maximize local street grid connections, review public transit service issues, particularly at Rapid Central Station, consider travel needs for emergency vehicles and first responders. These project needs will be referenced throughout the remainder of the presentation as we review the results of our initial research on existing conditions. We analyzed the existing conditions within the corridor to better understand the corridor needs raised during our initial visioning meetings. This research helped to ground our purpose and needs statement. In this section, we will share the collected data and observations. We will start by reviewing the data around growth and development and how growth and development may impact the level of traffic along our study corridor. US-131 is the busiest freeway in West Michigan, comparable to freeways around Detroit. The current and future demand for US-131 is related to the general growth of the region and the need to facilitate access for residents and jobs. In the Grand Valley Metropolitan Council, GVMC planning region, which consists of Kent County and parts of Ottawa County, population is projected to grow by 20% by 2045. In Grand Rapids and Wyoming, the municipalities directly adjacent to the study area, population and employment are projected to grow around 15% by 2045. In downtown Grand Rapids, employment is projected to grow by 17.5% by 2045, and the estimated population also continues the growing trend. In addition, traffic levels on this segment of US-131 have grown more than 20% since 2005. Adjacent land uses in the area and their planning are also important considerations. Mixed use, industrial, and residential are the main land use types along the US-131 corridor. The Grand River and the Grand Elk Rail Yard will constrain the land use in terms of redevelopment. Projected traffic growth associated with increased population and development matters because traffic along US-131 has grown along with the growth of the larger metropolitan area. And as population and jobs continue to grow in the region, demand for travel on US-131 could also be expected to continue growing, potentially worsening the existing safety, operational, and congestion issues. Land use and future redevelopments matter because land use and future redevelopment within the study area may increase demand, but will also limit the options for how US-131 can adapt to meet local demand. We will now walk through the data collected around safety, starting with crash rates along the study corridor. The crash rates are higher than average for portions of the corridor in 2012, and crash rates have continued to increase along the study corridor. The crash rate on US-131 has grown most significantly on the Hall Street to Cherry Street segment in the northbound direction and on the Market Avenue to Franklin Street segment in the southbound direction. From 2017 to 2019, an average of 725 crashes occurred annually on US-131, including interchange ramps. The area that had the highest crash activity is around the Wealthy Street interchange. The area around the M11, also known as 28th Street interchange, also showed a significant number of serious crashes. While we looked at the amount of crashes within the corridor, We are also interested in better understanding the crash types. By looking at all crashes, we found the most common types are rear-end, sideswipe, and single motor vehicle crashes, and over 15% of crashes occurred on ramps. When we focus on crashes with fatalities or serious injuries, 36% of them are single motor vehicle crashes. Rear-end crashes are clustered on segments near Wealthy Street and Franklin Street interchanges, while rear-end crashes were more frequent on northbound US-131, potentially due to higher congestion. Single motor vehicle crashes are clustered near Wealthy Street and Cherry Street. Crashes that lead to serious injuries and fatalities are particularly worrisome, and therefore, mitigation measures are most critical for these crash types. Crash rates and types matter because segments of this corridor experience significant and growing crash rates, indicating a safety concern. Crash rates are specifically highest in and around the Wealthy Street and Franklin Street interchanges, with the most prevalent types being single vehicle and rear end. Crashes that lead to serious injuries and fatalities are particularly worrisome, and mitigation measures should be considered for those types in particular. Modernizing US-131 will provide opportunities for safety improvements. Traffic volumes have grown along the corridor, resulting in increased frequency and duration of congestion. In the US-131 northbound direction, the segment from Burton Street to the north is the most congested. There is more traffic between Hall Street and Franklin Street during morning peak hours than the evening peak hours. In the US-131 southbound direction, the segment near Wealthy Street is the most congested, with more traffic north of Wealthy Street during morning peak hours than the evening peak hours. In the US-131 southbound direction, the level of service is rated low in most segments, which indicates that traffic flow is frequently slowed and travel times are unreliable. Congestion is likely closely related to the safety issues identified previously, with many of the hotspots for congestion also being locations where there are known safety issues. Traffic volume matters because this corridor experiences significant congestion as it approaches and travels through downtown Grand Rapids. Congestion is likely closely related to the safety issues identified previously, with many of the hotspots for congestion also being locations where there are known safety issues. Increases in congestion may result in more incidents along the corridor. The study corridor was originally built in 1962. Since 2000, MDOT has performed more than 20 maintenance and improvement projects, including repairs, rehabilitations, and infrastructure upgrades on and near the study corridor. However, a more comprehensive solution to renew infrastructure is needed in the near future. Treatment and repairs are necessary to avoid worsening conditions. Aging infrastructure matters because the age of much of the freeway, which was constructed in the early 1960s and routinely maintained since, is approaching the end of its intended life cycle. While the pavement and bridges are serviceable today, the reality is that much of the corridor infrastructure is approaching 60 years of age. They will require significant investment in future repairs and replacement. Last, as the facility ages, maintenance repairs may become more intensive and require more frequent full or partial closures of the freeway, affecting mobility to and from Grand Rapids. Interchange operations play a large part in facilitating the flow of traffic along US-131. To better understand traffic flow related to the interchanges within the study corridor, we observed that the spacing between interchanges in the north end of the study corridor are very short, and that lengths of the on and off ramps were designed for a facility with much less traffic than we see today. The safety data also indicates that the Wealthy interchange area is the highest crash zone of the study corridor. Additionally, there is limited sight distance near the Wealthy Street and Cherry Street ramps on US-131 southbound. The curves affect drivers' ability to spot the exit and make a merging decision to safely exit the freeway. In addition, it is clear that the left-hand ramps to and from Wealthy Street on northbound US-131 affect driver expectations and traffic flow, especially during peak periods throughout the day. Interchange operations matter because portions of the study corridor do not conform to modern standards for safe and efficient interchange design. Modernizing and improving interchange conditions could reduce crashes and provide improvements for overall corridor operations. Modernizing interchanges provides opportunities to enhance connections across the freeway, while accommodating existing and future freight movements to and from the area industries and businesses that support the local and regional economy. US-131 is also a major corridor for freight transportation in West Michigan. Along the corridor, freight traffic and access are driven by a significant amount of adjacent industrial land use. The industrial corridor along US-131 and the railroad between Burton Street and Franklin Street both serve as major destinations for freight and logistics traffic. Services include trucking, material supplies, and distribution. The interchanges at Burton and Hall are particularly useful for trucks needing access to US-131. Freight transportation matters because freeways play a crucial role for freight movement and the economy of a region. The segment of US-131 between M11, also known as 28th Street, and downtown Grand Rapids is a primary route that serves regional distribution of goods to other areas of West Michigan. Also, portions of the study area have businesses that generate freight accessing US-131. Improving local freight access to and from US-131 could enhance regional freight movement, improve the value of industrial sites, and supports the West Michigan regional economy. For this study, we're also interested in the street connections to US-131 and across US-131, as they are important for vehicular and truck access to the freeway. They also serve as local access paths for all modes of transportation, including cyclists and pedestrians. This helps connect communities on either side of the freeway. There are limited street grid connections crossing US-131 and the adjacent rail corridor, particularly in the portion south of Hall Street. This means the streets become important connectors for not only automobile traffic, but also pedestrians and cyclists. From 2017 to 2019, there were 116 pedestrian-involved crashes and 41 bicycle-involved crashes within the larger study area. Most of these were not on the connections over US-131, but instead along parallel corridors like Grandville Avenue and Division Avenue, which are local streets. Accommodating non-motorized bicycle and pedestrian facilities are important for connecting communities on either side of the freeway. There are limited crossing opportunities for pedestrians and cyclists in some parts of the study area. The current connections that do exist do not always have complete non-motorized facilities and are often not comfortable to use for cyclists and pedestrians. The future design of the freeway may provide opportunities for better non-motorized access and will incorporate ADA standard facilities for any future crossing improvements over and under the freeway. Because two major transit hubs, the Rapid Central Station and Amtrak Passenger Rail Station, are located within the study area, we were interested in better understanding what public transportation issues exist that may be addressed through this study. The Rapid provides transit services in the Grand Rapids region and has numerous routes paralleling and crossing the study corridor. The Rapid has over 30 bus routes, and most buses access the Central Station either from Cherry Street or Ellsworth Avenue. An average of 4,633 transit riders got on or off a bus at Central Station on weekdays in 2019. Greyhound bus service is also located at the Rapid Central Station. The adjacent Vernon J. Ayler Station, Amtrak, served a total of 40,593 transit riders throughout 2019, which is a 3% growth rate compared to 2017. Public transportation service matters because the Rapid Central Station and the Amtrak Passenger Rail Station are located within the study area. Many bus routes from the Rapid have crossings over US-131 near its interchanges. Therefore, accommodations for transit service should be considered at these locations. Lastly, reconstruction of US-131 may provide opportunities to better facilitate transit and passenger rail and improve local and regional connectivity. The study corridor also provides vital access to regional healthcare facilities for emergency responders, healthcare workers, and patients. Spectrum Health facilities along the Michigan Street corridor south of I-196 and Mercy Health facilities along the Lafayette Avenue corridor east of US-131 are the two major medical centers that serve the emergency needs in the study area. For residents within the study area, particularly in the southern portion, US-131 serves as the main route for emergency vehicles from medical centers, fire stations, and police stations. Therefore, the proposed alternatives and interchange options should be evaluated with the needs of emergency responders in the Grand Rapids and Wyoming areas in mind. The Wealthy Street Interchange and its surrounding area are expected to serve as a focal point for this PEL study. Existing conditions and needs ranging from safety, congestion, and land use challenges to interchange operations and connectivity all converge at this location. Now that we have shared some information about the US-131 PEL process and some of the data we have collected from the study corridor, we would like to hear more from you about the corridor needs, evaluation criteria, and your interest in this corridor. For example, as it relates to the study corridor, do you see a need to improve safety, traffic flow? Are there opportunities to improve the street connections, etc.? Can you think of specific improvements you'd like to see made? Again, your input is critical to inform the study. Please complete the online survey. The survey will remain open through the end of January and can be accessed using the link on the following slide. Thank you for contributing your time to support improving US 131.